Greetings and welcome to Superintendent's Corner. My name is Richard Safier, Superintendent of Schools, and this show is an opportunity to look at the successes, the challenges, and the issues facing the Gloucester Public School District, and more importantly, to talk to the people that are most directly involved in making the public school district work. It's my pleasure tonight. We're going to talk to some members of the Gloucester High School Theatre Arts Group, and we have with us two of the actors in the upcoming play, and it's Bella Giordano and Emily Grace, and welcome and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Great. My understanding is that this year's fall play is going to be Antigone in Munich, and we're going to get into that quite a bit. That the dates of the performance are November 21st, 22nd, and November 23rd. On the 21st and 22nd, it's at 7 o'clock, and then there's a double feature, if you will, on the 23rd at 1 o'clock and 7 p.m., correct?
Yes.
Great, very exciting. Well, first, though, I'd like to have each of you introduce yourselves, a little bit about your background, a little bit about your theatrical background. Can we start with you, Bella?
Okay. So I'm a senior at GHS. I was in all the O'Malley productions, and I've been in the GHS theater program for 4 years. I'm also the student costume designer and student choreographer and the president of the theater program.
And you have time for all that and everything else that you do, and applying for colleges and
AP
getting used to the real world and everything else. That's pretty wild. That's great. How about you, Emily?
I'm Emily, and I'm also a senior. I've been doing theater since I was able to in elementary school. And I did most of the productions in O'Malley. Some of them I didn't because I was a little scared, but then I got used to it. And this is my first show with GHS, even though I'm a senior. I've been doing classes with Gloucester Stage Company, and I was an intern over the summer at Gloucester Stage. So yeah, that was really great.
We can talk about that a little bit as well, because I've seen a couple of 3 plays this summer, fantastic plays, and Hamlet's coming October the 25th, I think.
I'm so excited.
It's been a great season for that. But we're here to talk about Antigone in Munich. So which of you would like to begin giving a bit of an explanation and overview of the play itself? Emily, it looks like you'd like to go.
So Antigone in Munich, the Sophie Scholl story, is about Sophie, who is a very determined and very brave young woman, and she, over the course of the play, she is being interrogated. And
where does this take place? Obviously in Munich.
In Munich.
But give us the time frame as well.
It's during the World War II, during the Holocaust, and Hitler's rise, and Sophie wants to be involved with the White Rose Society that her brother Hans founded. Or helped found, and because she is a woman, because she is young, there's a lot of resistance for her being involved, and her brother is hesitant to let her be involved, but then she really wants to be involved and fight this and make this resistance to fight this bad time for Germany.
Sure. Now, were they in college at the time?
Yes.
Okay, and so this White Rose Society, which we'll talk about a little bit more, was something that was formed at the college, a handful of students, a professor, and Sophie had at least one brother that was involved, and some friends of the brother and the like. And I'm hearing you say that there was some resistance to her joining the resistance. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Her brother Hans keeps telling her that she cannot be involved because, she's his little sister, and he says it's too dangerous. She's too young, all that stuff, but she really wants to be involved, and she ends up, distributing a lot of pamphlets and making a lot of change happen. You want to say anything?
Yeah, no, I was going to, I'll do that, that's my job. So did, the brother said that he wanted to protect his younger sister. Was it just that, or was there a situation where they didn't feel there was a place for a woman in this? Is there some feminist thread running through this?
I think there is, but at the same time, there is also another woman in the group, but I think she was the only other woman. Besides that, they did try to keep a lot of girls out. One of the members, Willie, his sister Annalise, there's a scene where they try to get her out of the apartment. They don't want her to be involved. They don't want her to know anything. So yeah, I think it was partly him being just an overprotective older brother, but partly because she's a woman, it wouldn't be safe.
Is there any speculation as to why you had mentioned there was another young woman that was in the White Rose Society? why would they allow her to join and perhaps not Sophie?
Well, Sophie was a little too connected to the rest of the group. She was really good friends with a lot of the group. She was Hans's little sister. They wanted to keep her safe, and also because she was so young. She was younger than the rest, I think.
And about how old was she at the time of the?
21.
21, okay. Now, my understanding is that the play sort of has some flashbacks, that you're both playing the same character
Yes.
of Sophie Scholl, and that you're in the scenes, tell me if I'm wrong, but you're in the major scenes where you're being interrogated.
Yes.
And then the subject of the interrogation, the content, or whatever it is that you're being asked and however you're responding, then there are flashbacks, and then you're portraying Sophie Scholl. Can you give us an illustration of a particular scene and how that works and what you're being questioned about and then how you respond to it?
So the first scene that I have is the interrogator, Moore, and he is asking me about my involvement. And then he just goes back to the beginning, trying to start from the beginning, ask me my name and all about my life, just to get an accurate story of my life, and then try to figure out how I'm involved. And then he asks me about my involvement with the German League of Girls, and then that is sort of an introduction into a memory that I have with my friend, and Sophie realizing that not everyone is welcome into that group, and she doesn't understand at first, and then that leads into the flashbacks, and then we come back into the interrogation,
Right.
and then it leads into more memories.
So we do have a short clip of you being interrogated, but in this particular situation, and you mentioned the League of Girls, so then there's this flashback, and then what's your role, or how does it play out?
So the scene is when I'm 13 years old. I had just come back from school. I was with my friend Louisa, and we're just having a good time. We're just being like little girls and playing. And then I have to leave because I have a meeting at the German League of Girls. And I say, like, come with me. But she's like, no, I can't. I'm Jewish. Like, I'm not going to be accepted there. And I'm like, no, like, it's not really about praying or anything. They'll, like, be happy to have you. But she doesn't really understand that not everyone is accepted in Nazi Germany.
Sophie doesn't?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she doesn't understand that in the time period they thought of some people as better than other people. She just thought everyone would just be accepted.
Right. Yeah. Tough times, to say the least. Well, we do have a brief video clip of you being interrogated by this character by the name of Moore, and let's take a look at that.
A factual history of your life. It will give us an understanding of what happened to turn you against Germany.
I could never turn against Germany. Its beauty, its literature, it's in my blood.
Something changed.
I love Germany. Yes, I have wrestled with National Socialism. It has not been a just government. It has turned German people against each other.
It is this government that saved the German people from the Treaty of Versailles. It is this government that reduced unemployment and curbed inflation. This government brought Germany back from the ruins.
This government sold the soul of the German nation to reduce the price of bread.
You are too young to know how things were. For that I forgive you. But you are not too young to understand that your actions were treasonous.
I committed no treason. I do question what happens when the laws of man contradict the laws of God. What should a woman who follows God's laws do?
One learns to obey both.
Is that what you do?
I'm not on trial here. There are sympathetic points here. You were part of the Hitler Youth. When did you join the German League of Girls?
In 1933. I loved it. I thought it was all fun and games. I was 13 when I first learned not everyone was welcome in our little group.
Well, Emily, that was very interesting. Nobody would want to be in your position. And I'm going to ask both of you, you need to get into the role. And what does that require? Or what is it about Sophie's character as presented in the play that you learned and that you've used as part of your preparing for the role?
I think when doing a play, there can never be enough research that you do, especially with a true story. So I've tried to research Sophie as much as I can, as well as the other characters, to further analyze their relationships. And I don't know, I admire her for being one of the only women. You know, a lot of the pictures that I've seen of her, she's surrounded by men, and I don't know, she's really cool.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing too is that there's a blend that one hopes takes place, that you do some research, you read what you can about a particular character, but there's you as well interpreting that, and in turn trying to figure out how your mannerisms and the way you move your eyes, the way you express yourself. I mean, it's a very detailed, precise, dare I say, almost a scientific way of approaching things. You know, you've got that external information, you've got that internal drive to try to figure out that character. How about yourself? Because you're not a 13-year-old anymore, and I don't know if you're asked to portray Sophie when she's a little bit older, but that would only present more challenges, I would think.
I actually portray Sophie from the ages of 13 to 21, my last scene being when I get arrested by the Gestapo and become her. So I'm 13, 16, 18, 20, 21, and it's like, it's a little difficult, like trying to find character traits that go like through with me as I grow, but like still change and develop. And it's a little difficult also to like balance how innocent she is and like how determined and passionate she becomes. But something that just helps with the general like play production thing, our connection is that Emily Grace like sits in on rehearsals of when I'm playing the flashback Sophie, so that she can like observe my mannerisms and how I act, and then like think about how that is going to affect her when she's recalling that exact memory. And you know, we just try to like mimic each other.
Yeah, I think that's like the most important thing, is making sure that this is one fluid character.
Right.
Because that's like one of the most important parts of splitting a role
Sure.
into two.
You know, we don't look exactly the same. We need to make it known that we're the same character other ways.
Right. So observing and having those conversations ultimately begins to build those bridges, so that the audience will see the continuity between who you are, where you're sitting, and who you are as you're showing Sophie moving through through the ages. You made an interesting comment that the 13-year-old Sophie really had no idea that there was such virulent hatred, anti-Semitism, racism, fascism, and all the rest. Is that a prominent piece of the play?
Well, I don't think it's quite prominent that she was ignorant to it, because that comes from a place of privilege that she's Catholic, or not Catholic, Lutheran. But it definitely, like when she finds out, it shocks her, because she has her own morals, and she has her own belief of what her religion is and how people should be treated. So I think like coming from that place of innocence and ignorance, and growing and learning about all this hatred and oppression in her time period is what really like motivated her to take her own initiative and just resist.
Right. There's a scene, and we had some brief conversation before we started the taping, but there's a scene where Sophie is asking her interrogator about what moral laws she should be following. Could you reenact that just briefly for us?
Well, she says, I do question what happens when the laws of man contradict the laws of God. And what should a woman who follows God's laws do? And that comes from Antigone, the theme of doing things for yourself and going against the laws that you know are true.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's sometimes these things, the most profound of ideas and issues, can almost leave us speechless.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm just I'm listening for what the takeaways are so that when I watch the play and go see it, I can hear about feminism, I can hear about coming of age, and I can hear about moral transgressions and what is an individual supposed to do in light of the fact that the world around them has just completely turned to chaos. And she specifically, in being interrogated, refers to herself, what's a woman to do? She doesn't necessarily say what is a person to do, or a man or a woman to do. So there's that feminist angle as well. But there's another important component to this. It is called Antigone in Munich, which means that it is somehow references the ancient Greek play by Sophocles called Antigone. So who's in a position to give us an overview of Antigone and to tell us, although you've already alluded to it, but tell us what the connection is between that play and the play that you guys are performing?
I can do it.
Okay.
Okay.
I only ask tough questions.
Antigone is a Greek tragedy by Sophocles, and the storyline is that Antigone's brothers were on opposite sides of the War of Thebes. One fought for Thebes and one fought against Thebes, and then they both died. So Antigone's...
At each other's hand, there was a duel. There was combat. Sorry, I'll stop.
Antigone's uncle Creon becomes the ruler of Thebes, and the only brother that's going to get a proper burial is the one who fought for Thebes. And the Greeks thought that, like, the proper burial is how you go and cross into the afterlife, and that without the proper burial, this other brother wouldn't cross into the afterlife. So Antigone decides to fight for her brother and take it upon herself, like, to make sure he has the proper burial. And the whole theme of what do you do when the laws of man contradict the laws of God is because she wants him to have this proper burial to go and be with the gods and everything. But the law of man says that that's not allowed.
Right.
And then she is sentenced to death.
And she's given a couple of opportunities not to do it, and she's goes out a couple of times, and ultimately I think she hangs herself before she's executed, if I'm not mistaken. And her boyfriend, who is Creon's son, I think also kills himself as well. So now it's up to you to wrap it up and tell us, well, here we have Antigone defying man's law, and how does that relate to Sophie Scholl?
Well, in Antigone in Munich, we have this force of the Nazis and Hitler, and that is going against all the laws that Sophie knows are true. And so she's given, like Antigone, she's giving all these opportunities to save herself and not die and give away these other people so that she may live. And throughout the interrogation, she doesn't do that because she is willing to give up her life to make change, and she doesn't want other people to die. She would rather die herself than to expose them.
Right. So I'm going to ask you a little bit about tragedy, but I want to talk first about this. You had mentioned at the outset the White Rose Society. So the White Rose Society was this group of college students, correct? And their professor. Perhaps there were a few others as well. And so tell us what their work was. What were they doing?
So the White Rose Society was a nonviolent resistance group that was created by Hans Scholl, a couple of his friends, the professor. Sophie Scholl joined later. And their main thing was that they created pamphlets that spoke about, like, against the Nazis, and they also did a lot of graffiti around the university. They would write, like, freedom and stuff like that. And it ended a little before a year after it began, when most of them were taken into custody and then sentenced to death.
Right. There's a thought question out there, as we know, that Mahatma Gandhi in India was very active at this point in time, from the 30s into the 40s, and I presume that you're familiar with the nonviolent resistance of Gandhi, and the White Rose Society had a similar kind of approach to change. And then the question is, would Gandhi's tactics have worked against a regime such as Nazism back in the day. Ultimately, they were able to gain their independence from England, but would the same tactics, which the White Rose Society in effect tried, to do, would he have been as successful against that kind of a government, which was, in fact, defying the laws of God, if we speak in terms of the play? The White Rose Society, by the way, still exists. It's still here. You're familiar with this?
Yes.
I went online, and where do I have this? So this is a comment, if I may. This is a comment from online, from the White Rose Society of the 21st century, it's called. It says, "Dark clouds are on the horizon. Climate change, rising sea levels, growing inequality, sexism, racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and a growing authoritarian right are not promising to destroy all that we hold dear, or are promising to destroy all that we hold dear. The only solution is resistance, and we are the resistance. We are the White Rose Society. We seek to bring together all of humanity to fight these growing menaces. We seek to unite all of humanity to bring about a new world in which human rights, ecology, and democracy rule supreme. We seek a better future. We seek a just peace because we reject violence as a means or an end. We are the ones who will change the course of history." So, what's your reaction to hearing those kinds of words and being immersed in the play that you're in? What are your thoughts?
I think the group is amazing. I was researching them and just in awe of all the work that they were doing. There was one event in particular, I think it was a 2-day event in April of this year, where they dethorned 10,000 white roses and then handed them out at the university to represent 1 day of the Jews being killed in Auschwitz. Wow. And it's events like that that just shock people and stun people and just make real change happen. And I think the group is incredible for the work that they're doing.
Yeah, no, I agree. In similar fashion, how do you expect audiences to walk out of the play after they've seen your performance?
I think it's similar to, I keep bringing up Romeo and Juliet, how in the prologue they make a statement about, don't let this happen in real life. Like what you see here in this play, it's bad.
Tragedy.
It's a tragedy, so don't recreate it. Don't let it happen. And I think this is similar. It's you come out of it feeling hopeful and feeling changed, and it's an inspiring story that I think needs to be heard.
That's great. We're always saying, how do we inspire young people and stuff, and you're doing it for yourself, so you're making our job easier, and so I really appreciate that and thank you for it. And Emily, you're very good at throwing me the next segue, because I did want to ask you about nature of tragedy. You're theater students, you're actors, and tragedy is one of the most ancient means of conveying ideas through theater. So what is tragedy?
Tragedy is a type of drama, a type of play that usually ends like horribly in death or something horrible happen. And two like literary terms to help define this is hubris and catharsis. So hubris is like a character flaw that ultimately like leads to their death. So an example would be pride, and in Sophie's case, selflessness, because she cares so much about her morals and making sure that everyone's okay. She like takes everything upon herself to do it herself, and she dies because of it. And then,
although she's not showing hubris, she's showing, as another illustration, she's selfless to the point where it ultimately brings about her destruction. But there's another word for that. Her empathy is what really comes through in that particular character. And so hubris is, as you said, is a form of arrogance, and the other is catharsis. That's a nice Freudian term.
Catharsis is a build-up to death. It creates tension, and catharsis is the release of the tension. And for this story, it is when Sophie accepts her fate and accepts her death, and realizes that it's not just in vain. Like she's changed something. She's put these pamphlets out into the world, and she dies, but it still inspires the audience.
Great. And if any of us can find purpose in our deaths, especially in the noble terms that Sophie was able to, then we'll be all the better for it. It sounds absolutely amazing, and I'm really looking forward to it. The ideas that you've brought forward sound terrific, and I'm always attracted to the fact that something is tied into something from the past. So while you're acting, you're being inspired, if you will, by something that was produced thousands of years ago. I mean, that's extraordinary type stuff. When I saw that you were reading this, I'm saying to myself that I'd like to get back to reading some of the ancient Greek plays and the tragedies and all the rest, because it's pretty exciting stuff. Good. So you guys are also not only going to perform this in November 21st, 22nd, 23rd, but I understand you're going to take it on the road as well with the METG, the Massachusetts Educators Theatres Guild celebration. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's a non-competitive, almost celebration of local schools and their theater programs. And I went when I was a sophomore. We took Nora's Lost. It's just to share our shows and like build on each other and build each other up and do constructive criticism and just try to make each other better. And we're trying to actually become the host for this year's, so it'll be hopefully held at Gloucester High School, and the community can come see all these local theater programs and support the community.
That would be great. Way back when I was a teacher, I used to help out on the stage design and setting and all the rest, and we would participate in the Boston Globe State competition. Not that mattered so much, but to see the talent and the 5 minutes to get their stage set up, and then the actors would come out and do their thing for 10 to 20 minutes, and the energy and the performances and the quality were great. So you're going to make a great contribution to it, and you're probably going to learn a lot from it as well. So congratulations, keep working hard. I'm really looking forward to seeing it when it comes on board, and for the third time. It begins on November the 21st at 7, November 22nd at 7 o'clock, and then on the 23rd at both 1 o'clock and 7. That's Antigone and Munich. And for this episode, number one, Bella and Emily, thank you so much for coming on. Great job. And I thank you for this segment of Superintendent's Corner. I say good night.